This is ILLUMENATE, the podcast about men with good hearts, open minds, and a desire to make the world better. Welcome to ILLUMENATE. I'm your host, Chris Tidrick. Today we have a special episode. ILLUMENATE is usually a space where I sit with men and explore the stories that shaped who they've become, how purpose, pain, and growth have formed them over time. For this episode, I wanted to widen the lens and include the perspective of moms of boys, because their vantage point offers a unique view into how masculinity is observed, questioned, and nurtured in real time. This panel isn't about assigning responsibility. It's about listening to the insights that come from walking alongside boys as they grow in partnership with fathers, families, and communities. By including moms in this conversation, my hope is to better understand some of the early influences and relational dynamics that shape the stories that men eventually tell. I'm joined here by 4 women who I've connected with on Threads and wanted to share their stories of being the moms of boys. Let's learn who they are and a little bit about their sons. So, Frida, do you want to start?
Well, hi. I'm so happy to be here. It's my very first time. I am from Venezuela. I came to the United States 8 years ago when my son was 3.5. We came here just by ourselves, so it was tough the first 2 years. When I have to, find jobs and everything and find people here to help me with him, while I was working. I didn't have my village here or my family because I left them back there. So that was kind of the hardest part of immigrate. It was that part, not the job that I had to do. It was that part, finding someone that I trust enough to leave my son with during that time. And I don't know, we're here 8 years after and happy, or we found our people here and I don't know, I'm raising a very sweet and kind boy.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that and for being on the show. Dayspring, you want to go next?
Hi, yes, I'm Dayspring. I have 3 boys. I have an 18-year-old, and then I have twin boys that are 14, and we live in Texas.
Okay. Sarah.
Hi, I live in northern Wisconsin, and I have 2 boys who are 19 and just about 15 in a couple days here.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And finally, Nicole.
Hey, everybody. My name's Nicole. I actually live in Central Florida in a town called Lakeland between Tampa and Orlando. And I have 2 boys. They are 14 and 15 years old. We call them Irish twins. And they also have red hair with attitudes to match.
Okay, fantastic. I was not from an Irish family, but my brother is only 14 months older than I am. So I think we qualify pretty closely there too, almost.
Very close, yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic when they're that close together for sure. So let's go ahead and jump right into the questions. I know I gave you all the questions ahead of time, so you had some time to think about these because they're a little bit deeper questions than you might normally just be asked in everyday life. But the first question I wanted to talk to you about was, like, when you think about the men that you hope your sons will become, what qualities matter most to you?
I think respectful, kind, considerate. My husband's a really good role model for them for all of these things. But, I always am just like, I try to model it to them. Like, you treat each other with respect. You're kind to the grocery worker. You're kind to the waitress. You're kind to everyone that you interact with. So I try to model that to them. And then I really just hope that they're kind and considerate and loving and respectful people.
I had kindness and empathy on my list as well, along with fortitude, like following through with what they start, the stick-to-itiveness, if you can call it that, and humor as well, because that has helped us as a family through a lot in life. So
that's an underrated skill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I have on my list the same things, like having family values and be loving and caring and respectful. also that he has that sense of providing protection and safety to his loved ones, to be responsible, to try to finish whatever he starts, hard worker, and connected with his emotions and feel comfortable enough to express him. He already is, but I don't want, life and situations that he's living in the future minimize that.
I would say when I read this question, the number one thing that came up, and I think I heard that in some of the other mothers, was empathy. When growing up, when your boy told to be tough, and so you may have empathy, but it kind of wavers, or at least I've seen that. And so I really, really hope and pray that empathy continues to be in their life, but also confidence as they're in their teens. They act confident, but I think they struggle with it. And so I really hope that that they continue to believe in themselves and build their confidence as they grow into a man. So those are the two things that came to mind with that question.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing and for sharing the idea that, they're already developing some of these skills and you're helping them develop those skills. And it's, I want to transition into the next question, which is maybe has a little bit more of a negative vibe to it. But I think, all of us, and it's not just moms, like I probably had some of these, fears about raising my son in a world too. But what are the things that scare you as you raise boys in today's world?
I have twin boys, so that there's constant comparison between them. But I know that with our society, there's a lot of just competition on how much money you have or how good you are at sports or anything like that. And so I feel like, comparison can kind of be evil sometimes, if you feel like you're lacking anything. But all three of my boys are very confident, fortunately. But I mean, I can see where they can struggle, with their muscles or anything like that with, might kind of be like, they're not quite through, the 14-year-olds are going through puberty. So I feel like sometimes they're like, well, he's already so much bigger than I am or whatever, so that comparison I think can kind of be hard sometimes for them.
Yeah. Comparison's the thief of joy.
Right.
Yeah.
I had on my list, I'm really scared of, and this was a hard one to think about. Like my boys, I'm pretty confident in their abilities and their, how they're going to be when they go out in the world. But I'm scared that they might get hurt standing up for themselves or for somebody else. There've been a couple instances of standing up for somebody else at school, or and that puts, I don't want to say a target, but, it puts them in an awkward spot. But each of my boys have done that anyhow. And so that's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's brave to live your values, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say that the thing that scares me the most is social media and what they have access to, the things I don't know that they see, even though I have boundaries in that area where, things are limited, parental controls, but your kids get pretty tech savvy. And then I just get nervous about what they actually do end up seeing, even if it's from their friends or other, peers. So that concerns me.
I have that, for example, that he pays, he's growing or something, or he has just started middle school this year. I'm afraid that he's become a follower, and not a leader or something. So I don't know. I'm afraid to that kind of things. We have been having those conversations, about what happens if you see these kind of things. What do you think? How you're going to react? And then I let him talk and then kind of suggest what I would do, to manage things differently. But I'm afraid to that he pays more attention to other distractions, or people with different values or something. He's 11, yours are older. So, and I'm freaking out in middle school already. But yes, it's just like, I don't know, that he lose hope or he gets settled more about or be afraid to give the extra mile just because he feels comfortable in this level, that's the kind of things that I've been paying attention to. And sometimes I say, this is not life. Life is this kind of tough, and you need to, be tough enough or brave enough to keep pushing forward. And sometimes it's hard, or sometimes it's less hard, but it's what we need to do.
Do any of you have advice for Frida on like getting through those middle school years?
I think mine were nervous to go to middle school. They were like, what if we get bullied? And what if this happens? And they're in 8th grade. And so it's actually been better than we've anticipated. They do have a good group of friends. So, encourage him to find good friends that, invite people to your house. So I know a lot of their friends, and I know what they're watching. Social media scares me too, Nicole. Like that's a whole... We could talk about that for an hour, I bet. But really, middle school has been better than we've anticipated. And mine plays sports, and they have good groups of their little friends and buddies and stuff. So it will probably be better than you anticipate, I hope.
Thank you.
I do want to actually dive into the social media question a little bit deeper, because I do think that is this like really huge thing for boys and for girls. It might actually be even more damaging for girls in today's society, but it's, my son, he's an adult now, but he was chronically online, right? And we let him. So like, are any of your boys sort of like just deep into it at this point, and just it's like that the phone is just the extension of their arm, and Frida, yours is 11, so they may not be at that point yet, but what does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis? And no judgment zone here, right? It's think this is a really difficult one to figure out.
Right. My 18-year-old is definitely addicted. Our 14-year-olds, we haven't gotten them smartphones yet, but they have iPads. So on their iPads, they can text their friends, and they can go on YouTube. We have parental controls and time constraints and that type of thing. But and it's interesting with the twins. One of them definitely has more of an addictive personality than the other one, and so he will, sneak his iPad or whatever, and the other one will like put it on the charger and forget about it. And so it's interesting to see them. But my 18-year-old, it's definitely a problem with wanting to be on his phone all the time.
I was going to say my youngest I have 2 older girls as well who are older than the boys. And out of all the kids, he is the least attached to his phone. He still spends plenty of time on it, but he's in sports. He puts his phone down when he's doing his homework, just because he knows from experience that he learns better, studies better that way. He's got other activities that he does with friends that don't involve the phones, but it's still, it's scary what they might come across, but I don't know. I just have to believe that he's got a good foundation, and, it's, a lot of that social media stuff is not worse than he can find on TV or the movies, or even sometimes the news. So
we have raids back in November with ICE here, and I don't know if it's a political thing, but I didn't tell him nothing, and I dropped it off at school. And when he came back, a teacher mentioned that and justified why the school have so many kids that didn't attend. And so I was mentioned this because it's not only social media or on a screen or something, is comment, that an adult can tell them, and we don't know. We don't have access or control about that. But yeah.
So when I had a 2-parent household, when they had their dad, we had really strict rules in the house. No bed, like no phones in your room. You don't go to bed with your phone. We're not at a dinner table with our phone. So we had some really some ground rules that we followed. After the divorce, there was a period where I feel like they used it as a coping mechanism, because as not being able to, be there all the time, that's because I work and things like that. I thought it started to become a crutch. And so, And also there was a part of me that was like, well, it's sort of working for what it's doing. I still have my concerns of what they're exposed to, but I got way more lenient is what I'm trying to say. And so to the point now that I think it's probably, they have it too much, more than I've ever I'm comfortable with. But now that it's kind of become the norm, it's hard to pull back, and it starts to become more of like a disciplinary thing where if they don't do X, Y, Z, then they can lose their phone or, that sort of thing. But there were some really hard, like some ground rules, but you have to constantly babysit them and keep on them. And then you turn into a nag that is always saying, get off your phone or talk. And you don't want to, I didn't want to have to do that either. And there's just like this tug of war. Sometimes I just want to throw it out the window and then it becomes a non-issue, but we can't do that because I'm on my phone. I work in social media. I run a marketing agency. Like,
so do I.
Yeah. So it's like, they're like, Mom, you're on your phone. And I'm like, this is work, but then
I'm
it's,
working.
I know. And they're like, I'm working too. And I'm like, I guess, okay. So I think I controlled it as long as I possibly could. And it is just like an acceptance that starts to happen as they get into their teens. And that doesn't mean give up. It just means that's been my way. I've come to peace with it right now.
I also think that, social media isn't all bad, right? We all found each other through Threads. Like we found each other through social media. And if you can, focus on the positive sides of it, like keeping in touch with friends or keeping in touch with family, that's one thing. And I also feel like, Nicole, if our kids are getting good grades and they seem happy and healthy and they're playing sports or participating in extracurricular activities, I really don't care if they're on their phone for an hour or two every day, if they're balancing everything, right? It's not like they're on their phone 12 hours a day and failing out of school and don't have any friends. And, I think that there can be balance. So I don't think that.
And I think we know that as moms, like, we're like, you're going to we keep them busy on purpose, right? Like that's the whole thing with sports and schools, like in their little moments of the car or wherever, that's when they're squeezing it in for the most part. One thing we did do though, that I was really grateful for is that we would do audits of their phone, like every three or 4 months. And there was one time we found a couple things that were unsavory that but them knowing that we put those kind of things in place,
right.
I don't know if that just means they hid things more, but I liked the fact that they knew that we had access and they need to be careful about, certain things. So I don't know. That's one of the things I'll pull out the mom wallet. Like I'll be going through your phone any day. See, I never do, but it's okay.
Yeah, that's something I definitely should have done. I don't think I saw my son's phone after he was like 12 years old. Like never saw it. Like not once had it in my hands. So he survived, but it's probably not the best practice. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it was his dad. He was like, I want to see your phone. He's like, I don't want you getting into anything. So it worked.
Let's talk a little bit about community. We've talked a little bit about friends and school and things like that, but what role do you think community plays in raising boys? And where do you feel kind of specifically supported or unsupported in your community environment?
Sure. I think community plays a huge part if we let it. When my boys were about 10 or 11, and then the youngest would have been 5 or 6, is when I got divorced. And, a lot of people didn't know what was going on. The community, I live in a super small town. School is really small. But the majority of people I didn't tell. I don't post that kind of thing on social media. And so they didn't know that I was struggling and needed help, except for the people that I did. There were a few close friends that I did tell, and they really stepped up. And so that kind of community, I think, they would help get the boys to their extracurricular things or take them after school, or they were just really supportive in that manner. At the time, I was also going to church, and so we were involved in youth group, and the pastor knew my story and was very supportive. And, like one Thanksgiving sent home a whole box of before Thanksgiving, a turkey and a mashed potato or potatoes and gravy and, those kinds of things that first Thanksgiving when it would have been really difficult otherwise. So, and other than that, when they were really young, getting them, I took them to play groups. I still worked full time, but I got them to play groups or connected with the older siblings, families and friends. And so those connections there really helped too.
Yeah. Frida, what about you? I mean, you have this story of immigrating to the United States, and that's probably a restarting of your community. So, how has community work supported you in helping you raise your son?
Well, if I can say, when I came here, I think my process of growing has been more. What I grow here is more that I could grow in these 8 years back in my country. So that's the way I see it. So here, yes, obviously I need to start creating community, creating friends or finding friends. But what I did was to attend a church. And also my community is all my friends from church, that we are, sharing the same values, not only the beliefs, but our family values. I attend a service in Spanish here. So I live in Durham, North Carolina. So we have Colombians, that is like my cousins because we are very close. So we have similar, very equal cultural things, food and everything. So yeah, we've been connecting with this. This is our environment. Like I intentionally find or looked to be surrounded with these kind of people that we share the same values. And that's my community. Obviously, it's very neat. We need it because not a mom or a kid can thrive by themselves or by ourselves. We need community. And it's good that we have the chance when we immigrate to choose, what persons are the one we allow to be in our circle. So,
yeah, thank you, Nicole. What about you?
One community I learned early on. I had to build that. I did that mostly by joining like junior league and some community and service-based organization here in Lakeland. And I noticed that my kids noticed and took to that. And I would bring them basically with me to anything or everything I did, whether it was, getting food and bringing it and donating it. But more importantly than all that, the way the community has stepped up in the past year has really been through sports and their coaches. From everything from giving them rides to just being a mentor to just listening to them talk about things that they don't want to talk about with me because I'm mom and, that's just not what they're at that point where I'm not going to hear from them in that kind of vulnerable way all the time. So I think having male figures, and thank goodness for sports. I don't know, we're not as heavily involved in church, so I don't know how we would have been able to tap into that if it wasn't for just their teams and having like that really close-knit bond with them. So it's vital, especially if you are a single mom.
I'd like to switch to a different topic here, and it's one that has gotten a ton of media attention. I know on social media there's a ton of conversation about where men and boys are getting their messages about masculinity and what it means to be a man. So where do you see your sons receiving these messages? It sounds like some of you are, providing some of those messages to them and kind of instilling values in them. But externally, where do you see them getting these messages? And how do you navigate that if it's not something that matches your values?
Right. Well, my boys, there's on YouTube, there are these guys called the Trend Twins, and they're like on pretty much on steroids, and they're like these guys that are working out all the time and they cuss a ton and all this stuff. And so they'll watch that and be like, oh, they're cool. Like, look how much weight they can lift and stuff. And I'm just like, they're kind of not people that you really should look up to, And so on like YouTube and things like that, there's a lot of sort of that culture, I guess, where it's like this, big weightlifting and probably steroid use type things. And
I think a lot of messages, I mean, obviously social media and movies and television, right? And it's not necessarily all very good messages. There are some, but I mean, the Hallmark movies, obviously, right? There's always a bad guy and a hero in those, but yeah, I think that social media is a huge part of it. And I just make sure that we have open communication and talk about those kinds of things. And they know that they can come to me. And if I see something, I will bring it up to them. Even if it's a hard topic or something uncomfortable or awkward, I think it's better to talk about it than to just let something slide. So.
Yeah, Frida, what about you?
Yeah, same. Social media and the news. Although I don't see it. I don't like to see it in front of him. But yeah, sometimes when I hear he likes these YouTubers that they're gamers or something. So sometimes when I hear something, it doesn't help me because he speaks more English than Spanish. And it's different because I can hear someone speaking English, but if I don't really pay attention or switch my English side of the brain, I can understand nothing what they're saying. I hear the people talking, but obviously he had an advantage of me on that kind of things. So when I hear something that I think is a bad word or something, I say, hey, what was that? And he said whatever. And then I said, well, it's not appropriate for you. Obviously, he's a grown man. His audience should be that kind of people. This is not an audience for, that kind of thing. So, and also we talk a lot. Thankfully, I am with him 24/7. My doctor's appointment, his doctor's appointment. So we talk a lot in the car. And every time I pick him up from school, he starts from, okay, what happened today? Q1. He tell me everything what happened from the very top of the day. So we have a very open communication, and I just let him, vent or talk or share. And then, if I need to readdress something, that's the moment. But yeah, it's basically, we don't do this. We don't believe in this. We don't, that kind of things to help him this is more like us. And not paying attention to other people can think or say. That's not aligned what we believe or we think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will share with you that even as a native English speaker, the YouTubers that my son would listen to, I couldn't understand them either.
Oh my God!
It's nothing but noise.
Right. Yeah, I think it was me that my English side of my brain didn't work.
Yeah. Well, and then there's slang words that like the other day, my husband printed off this paper that what all the new slang words are, and by the time he printed it off, I said, I don't even think they say that stuff anymore. And then we showed it to our boys, and I was like, is this a word? And not cuss words, just slang words. I said, is this even something you say anymore? And they're like, Mom, we don't say that anymore. That's old, or whatever. And so I think part of all the noise online is just a lot of gibberish and slang words that I'm like, that makes zero sense. But we had that in our age.
It's camouflage. It's camouflage, so we stop paying attention.
Yeah. That happened as well when he said something with the Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever, and I said, Juan, I don't understand that. Talk to me in English because I don't know what it is. But yeah.
So how do your boys build healthy friendships and build their own community, and how do you help them do that?
Well, my son is very empathetic. Empathetic is the right word. So he he has been suffering already with those disappointment for friendship or something. So, and I don't. What I know is that I'm not raising my son to live in a bubble. I'm telling him always what is life, and I've been sharing him. For example, we are not friend of everybody, or not everybody is your friend. You have classmates, you have people you know from, but not everybody is your friend. So we are starting, getting to know everybody's limits and how to cross it or not cross it. We have 2 or 3 situations in 5th grade with that kind of things. Not aggressive, nothing, but he felt it very deep inside, like he was heartbroken or something for the situation that I was happening. And yeah, obviously I wasn't so much pain to see him suffering, but not mad. He was suffering that it hurts. Why does he keep doing these kind of things, crying? And it's the kind of things like he has a very soft heart, and I pray to God that keep being that way, but also to be, I don't know, to have the skills or tools to not let them be that broken, because of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's like we talk a lot, and it's like basically this is life. I have friends from school, or I have people that I get along very well at work, but doesn't mean that is my best friend. But this is us as grown up, and you're learning how to get there. So it's a process, and trust in the process or something. So.
Thank you. Sarah?
I think the friendship started, with those play groups that we did, or siblings of their older siblings, friends, younger siblings. Does that make sense? Like the siblings of their older ones' friends. And then just to encourage that, hope that, they're making these connections based on the values that we've instilled in them, right? And encouraging that. Driving them to their friends' houses, or letting them go. Like I said, we live in a really small town, letting them take their bikes and go over to their friends' houses when they're in 2nd grade even. Meeting at the park to go play, or picking those kids up when I had a day off or something, picking the friends up to go to the beach for the afternoon, or just come over here to hang out or whatever. And encouraging those things like that.
Yeah, you teach them, like you might have a few really close friends, you might have sort of acquaintances. There's people you might play on the same team with that you don't especially like, but you can get along with. But really cultivating close friendships, and maybe you might only have a couple really, really close friends, or but we try to have friends come over for play dates or sleepovers, and they go to friends' houses. But yeah, you also tell them, like, oh, you didn't get invited to that birthday party, but you didn't invite him to your birthday party, so like were your feelings hurt because you weren't invited? I'm sorry, but you know what? Maybe he's not one of your close friends either. So like, I can see why you're upset, but maybe you're just not as close as, you might have thought you were or something. But our boys have some really good friends that like we take on vacations with us and things like that. So they've been pretty fortunate in that, but they are good friends to their friends. Like I'm like, you have to be a good friend to other people if you want them to be good friends to you. Be thoughtful, be kind, and stand up for your friends. Frida, I'm glad that your son still talks to you, because my 14-year-olds are getting to the point where they barely talk to me. So the fact that yours talks to you so much, I'm like a little jealous, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that he still does. Because now mine, I'll be like, how was school? And they're like, fine. how was practice? Fine. I'm like, okay, well, what was the high? What was the low? What made you happy? What made you sad? And they're like, nothing. So.
He won't change when he gets 14.
Yeah, I will say, like, I have seen so many of my friends that had sons my son's age, it just happens. Like there's something that when they hit
Don't
the teenage
tell me
years, they will. Like, but it's good that you have this relationship now.
Right.
Because
it flips back.
It will flip back, right?
Yeah,
it does flip back.
Like my son now, we have great conversations, and he, I don't know that he shares like his deepest self with me, but he connects with me, and like that's really important to me. And he's 23 now, and it does come back. They just get a little introspective and surly when they're teenagers. It's just, I think it's just part of
normal.
It's biology.
I think that part, back with this friendship thing, being open and talking to them, that friendships because you had a best friend in kindergarten, that's not necessarily going to be your best friend in ninth grade. Odds are it's not. You change, people change and grow, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, or that, you're still acquaintances with them if you're in school with them, but you don't have to maintain that same level of relationship with everybody forever.
Yeah, that's a really good point. My son was when he went to college, almost all of his good high school friends went to the same school. Like every single one of them. We live in a college town, so like it was a natural thing for them to all go. And I was like, oh, they're just going to continue to stay friends. He graduated with a completely different set of friends.
Yeah. Well, and along those lines, my 19-year-old didn't go to college after school, and almost all of his friends, in fact, I think all of his friends now go to UW-Madison. They do. And they still come home together, and they're all still kind of friends. And he meets up with them when they come back in town. But he was the only one who didn't go with that same cohort of friends. But they're still friendly, and they went on trips this past summer together, et cetera. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure what my 18-year-old's going to do. I don't think at this point, I'm like, he needs a gap year or two, but a lot of his friends are going to be leaving for college. But he has friends who graduated last year who come home, and they hang out when they come home. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that also.
Well, I have a few years ahead to think about it.
Yeah.
But he's been worried or thinking about it, like, he wants to go to the same high school where everybody, from his elementary and middle school kids or friends are going to go. But I'm trying to keep his feet on the ground and say, we may not. I don't know if in the future, if we are able to buy a house and it's not going to be here in the area. So it could happen, or not. So I just try to not be so attached to one idea, because the disappointment is going to be bigger. So just, I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. That's what I try.
Yeah. I think a couple of you have shared that, you're single moms, and Dayspring, I think you mentioned your husband. So, you're you have a father in the house. I want to ask this question of all of you, and I think it's a difficult one to answer. I think it would be difficult for me to answer, because I think men have a really difficult time connecting emotionally with their sons or with young men who aren't their sons. So like, how do you wish fathers or other male role models would engage in the emotional lives of boys? Not just the physical lives of boys, but the actual emotional lives of boys.
Of course, I think society tells our boys that emotion is bad. Well, it tells us women that as well, right? But I wish that, men would talk to their sons about those kinds of things. Now that I'm almost 9 years post-divorce, my ex has a completely different and better relationship with the boys than ever. And he does tell them, he's proud of them, he loves them, talks about those hard things with them. Now, I was always, when we were married, I was the one who handled all of the emotion kind of things with the girls and the boys. But I think I was lucky that I also came from a single mom household, and my father was out of the picture. And so my two brothers that I grew up with definitely tried to step up during that divorce, et cetera, and connect with the boys, call or text or come up or try to take them for a weekend or something like that, just to have some sort of, male figure in their life.
My son or my husband's dad was not very emotionally connected with him. And so he's very intentional about telling our boys he loves them and hugging, trying to at least get a quick hug. It's usually a side hug or a 2-second hug for me also. But we talk a lot about the importance of that. I had a very hands-on dad, and he was very in touch with his emotions, and so I've noticed we have some good coaches and dads in town that will sort of take boys under their wing that might not have a dad in the picture, or if a kid's upset, they'll be like, "Hey, come on, buddy," So I do see some men really trying to be intentional with that. So I just tell my husband all the time, I'm like, you need to let them know that it's okay if they're upset or if they're have those feelings. Because I don't want our kids to have like those repressed feelings growing up. I want them to know that they're loved and we're proud of them and that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, same happened with my son's dad's dad. He wasn't too connected to his emotion, but thankfully his dad has realized the difference. Like he sees the kind of dad that he would like to be and not following examples. So we have a very good relationship. He lives in Miami, and the very first time that Juan spent 5 days there, it wasn't a summer or something. I told him, like, hug him, please, because he's very used to that. He's used to receive my love in a physical way. So it was the very first time that he's not going to be with me. So at least hug him or just put in the arm. I remember that I said, put your arm on his shoulder. Just pretend, but just just kind of be that, because he's used to that, But yeah, they have a very good relationship. He says every time they talk on the phone, he said, "Well, I love you," that kind of things. Because I've been sharing with him also, like, yeah, Juan has been, I don't know, in any particular situation, like he's very emotional, that kind of things affect him or not. Obviously I spend more time with him, so I know what happened every day. So, and that kind of things has helped him to getting to know in that deeper level that probably he's not experienced, but at least he knows. And yeah, and at least that in the community, like I said, friends or adult men from church, that have been seeing him grow, the same constant people that seeing us in all of these years. So it's like that role model, that he's been seeing.
Thank you for all sharing that. I know those are kind of deeply personal stories, so I appreciate the willingness to share those. Dive a little bit more deeply into kind of how you hope your sons see you. And so what do you hope your sons learn from watching you live your life?
I'll say I hope that they come away with some resilience and knowing that hard work pays off and that kindness wins. It doesn't mean being a doormat. You can still be kind and empathetic and stand up for yourself and have boundaries, and that's okay. I hope they learn that better than I hope they don't wait until 50 something to learn that. And that patience patience, and kindness, empathy. All of those things really make a difference.
I have a temper, and so I really hope they don't just remember me always like yelling at them. They'll say, "You're nagging me." And so I'm like, well, I've asked you to do that 3 times. I told you if you didn't do it within 5 minutes, you were going to have a consequence or whatever. And then finally I'm like, get your shoes on. But I don't know. I tell this story, like my mom, I grew up really poor, but my mom, food was very important to her. And so every morning she made breakfast. She made everything from scratch because it was, cheaper to make things from scratch. And I make them breakfast every day now. And we can afford convenience foods, but I enjoy cooking them breakfast. And I'm like, I'm hoping that they'll remember that, they'll have that as a core memory that I made them breakfast or cut up strawberries for them or whatever, But yeah, I hope that they hope, I think that they will remember, because now they'll say things like, "Oh, I remember when you did this," or we try to do things for people in our community that might need help or whatever. And so I'm like, we've taken them to food banks or we take them places, and I'm like, hopefully they'll remember that, and when they grow up, they'll continue to be kind. And the resiliency thing's important. We say that kids these days lack fortitude because they don't really ever experience a lot of difficulty. And so that's something that I'm hoping that they'll learn. Just, hard. You have to work hard for things. You have to, you have to be resilient. You have to give it your all.
I think in the beginning of 6th grade, he had a very tough time adapting to that new routine, 6 new teachers and everything, personalities, whatever. So, and I remember one time I offered to change him out of school, because I don't know, in some point I was like, I'm trying everything and I don't see, and that is getting better. So in some point I told him like, well, Juan, sometimes we try to adapt to situations, but sometimes when we notice that the outside is not changing or it's not providing whatever we need or want, it's up to us to change that. And that I gave him the example that why I decided to emigrate. Back in the time when I decided to come here, it was the very tough time in my country, and I told him that, and we've been talking about that. So he knows. And I told him like Venezuela wasn't giving us what it wanted for us. So that's why I decided to move out. And that's the kind of things I want him to know, and grow with that we don't have to settle for things, or if you want more and you know that you are capable to do more, just do it. You don't have to stay there in some point. You can say a relationship or a toxic relationship or whatever is in your life, you have the ability to move. And because change is the only constant that we have in life, and it's okay. It's a process. Obviously, resilience, and obviously hope, and that God is with us, and no matter what is the situation, we are not by ourselves. He has a better plan for us, and we have to trust that. And also teaching him how to develop that, relationship with him so he can talk, or at least, I don't know, vent with God at some point, that when things are bigger than us that we don't think, obviously, that we can handle or succeed or something, it's a bigger, force, and we have to trust in him and everything. So.
Yeah, those all 3 of you shared like really kind of heartfelt, wonderful things that you want your sons to see in you, and that's it's like really special. Like you were all different, like you all had different answers, but at the end of the day, like it's those values that you want them to have, that you try to live out yourself. So thank you for sharing those things.
One thing, I'm sorry, I wanted to add something really quick. Sometimes my son tells me that he loves me 20 times a day. So sometimes I ask him like, why? But because I want him to go deeply, and go deep and analyze why you say that. It's not only words. So he says, because you're kind and you're respectful and you're a very sweet mom. And, it's not that I want to be praised. It's just that I want him to know what you're saying that you're feeling, to go a little more about that.
Yeah. That's really important, because a lot of times, they just get used to saying things because we say those things to them.
Yeah.
They don't really think through them. I really love that you do that with him and
Yes.
and help him think through that.
Yeah, sometimes it's a joke, like, why? And he goes, Mom, again, yes, you need to. But it's because, yes, I want him to know, and that way he can define, or I don't know, define the concept of what is loving or loving.
Yeah. Because I can almost guarantee you that sometime in the future, he will have a partner that asks him why when he says that.
Right.
And he needs to have a good answer.
Right.
He needs to have a good answer.
He'll have practice.
To have the right answer.
Yeah. So one last question before we wrap up today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I'm kind of mad at myself for not having engaged moms in this arena before. I think I may have. This might be a regular recurring thing with different women to come in, and because it's been a really, I think, rewarding conversation. I've learned a lot. But I want to leave my listeners and viewers with your answer to a final question. And that is, like, what moments with your sons make you feel the most hope?
This past weekend, we went to Dallas. It's like 2 hours away, and it was kind of a fun weekend. We took them to a hockey game and stuff, and they had two buddies with them, and they were able to walk to 7-Eleven, like right on the corner, like 50 feet away or whatever. And they went by themselves, and they got back, and I'm going to cry. But they got back, and they were like, we saw this homeless guy, and we asked him what he wanted inside, and he wanted a Reese cup. So we got him the king pack of Reese cups and gave him $1. And so I was like, that's really cool, you guys. Well, then the next day, they were like shooting wadded up paper towels in the trash can at the hotel. Boy behavior, of course. And one of the workers was like, "Hey, I'll give you $5 if you make a basket." And so he shot it. They weren't even around. They weren't around me at all. They shot it, made $5. They went back and gave it to that same homeless guy. And so I just was like, that's pretty cool. I mean, but then at the same time, they're like wanting to go shopping and wanting to spend a ton of money, or whatever. But I just was like, okay, that's really cool. I'm involved with like a homeless initiative here. So I guess they kind of know that, but I don't really know if they know that or pay that much attention to it. But I just was like, that's really cool, you guys. So I don't know. That gives me hope. on days
that's a fantastic story. And I've always said this is not a political podcast, but I'm going to make a little bit of a political statement here. Is like, I hope that someday, like, they carry that with them and run for office. and do those kind of things, because we need more of that notion in the public sphere.
That's that empathy.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing with friendships is they're kind of learning about politics that they don't necessarily always have the same views or candidates or anything as their friends. And I've explained to them, like, people are allowed to have different opinions. I think that's part of our problem with society right now. It's like, it's you're right, I'm wrong, no matter which side you're on. And it's like, I mean, I always say, like, at the heart of the matter, I think most people have more things in common than they do differences. If you can try to focus on things that you have in common rather than things that divide you, then you can usually probably get along with most people.
So, Frida, what gives you the most hope? Makes you feel the most hope?
Well, when sometimes he shared things that is his own opinion, but is what I've been telling him in a life lesson. Like when he gives me back when I've been given to him. So, for example, I don't know, I don't have nothing right now in mind, but I don't know, when he repeats that kind of things, now I know that it's not, he actually listened, but it's not just that. He processes it and he save it, in his very core or something. So it gives me hope that is there. The information is there and it's processed. When he sees something like it's kind of injustice, for example, with neurodivergent kind of students, in the school, and under his lens, the teacher hasn't respect the students. He's very like concerned, like they don't process the same way they have, like very advocating for his friends. That gave me hopes. Sometimes he wants to tell the teachers or something, but obviously he's 11. He's afraid with some of teachers, so doesn't say anything, but he's like the eager is there, like want to advocate or protect or something. His friend that also give me hopes.
Sarah, let's bring it home.
It gives me hope that when I see those morals and values coming out of my kids, like Frida said, when they give back what you've given them, they love to learn. They're in love with the world. There are things that inspire them. There are things that create awe in their minds. Just when I see them becoming the amazing humans that they're becoming, and 19 is still really young. I mean, my older boy's got a lot left to learn and grow. 2 years ago, he was not sure. He was not in a good place. He was not sure that he was going to graduate from high school. He did. He moved out in December, and now he's in Tokyo for 3 weeks, like right now while we're doing this. And for the 10 days by himself. I mean, it's amazing, that my shy little boy who was so shy and wouldn't talk to a stranger is now traveling on the other side of the world by himself. Wow. Or when my youngest, we were at the grocery store. I don't like to go grocery shopping. I take him with me anytime I can. And like I said, our town is really small. Our grocery store is really small. But 2 weeks ago or so, we were walking through. And when we got out, he's like, we saw like 3 or 4 people that we know in there. What are the odds of that? Really, the odds are really high. There are people that I only see at the grocery store. But all the times we've been to the grocery store, he never realized that, we see a lot of our friends and classmates and neighbors at the grocery store. So his eyes are still opening and discovering things. So. And the fact that they question, they can question me without judgment or retribution. I've tried to not say just because I was raised in that household. You do it just because you're told to do it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm open and honest about reasons or just anything, they can question something they've seen on the news. Or my youngest is super into politics and he knows a lot more than I do, and more power to him. The fact that they can question those things and try to think about them with an open mind, put themselves into somebody else's shoes, I think is really helpful.
Yes. Like I just want to say yes, 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 and yes. Like to all of your answers, this concept of questioning, like it is so absent in our society today. Like just to be able to say why, like why does that make sense? Like what's the factual basis underneath that? Like there's so much, right? And all of it's up for debate in some ways, in shape or form. But the idea of questioning is so important.
Behind, for example, one in the beginning of this school year, he started like, why the school system hasn't changed in all these years. The vehicles have changed. We started pulling a car with a horse or something. Then it comes this kind of car. Then we have electric car. Why the school system hasn't changed? And I was, oh my God, I didn't have answer for that. And I was, maybe it's happening, maybe no, I don't know.
He would love one of my favorite jokes, and it's if Thomas Jefferson were to come back today, what's the only thing he'd recognize? And it would be the education system.
Wow.
So I work in higher ed, so I use that joke a lot, but
it's a good one. Yeah. I think a step further than why is how. My boys both question how as well. And that creativity that comes along with that. My older boy taught himself how to forge and taught himself how to weld. And, part of that is letting him do that in a safe, safe environment out in the garage. But just, we didn't know anybody who forged. He wanted to learn how to make some foldable knives, and he taught himself, and he did it. So
that's cool.
Let me guess. He learned on YouTube.
He read a lot of books.
Okay.
And there are a lot of videos as well.
Okay. Yeah. It's,
that's a good use of social media.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I was just going to say, my son would regularly come to me with this random fact out of nowhere. I'm like, where did you learn that? The answer was always YouTube. And I'm like, okay, you need to source that. You need to source that, buddy, because it may not be true. Yeah, look it up. Look it up in a book. Yeah. Thank you all for spending some time with me tonight, and kind of really sharing a piece of yourself and a little bit of a glimpse into your son's lives. Really appreciate the time you spent. And I'm going to, I normally, all the men whose stories I tell on this podcast, I always end the podcast with saying the same thing to them. And I think I'm going to say the same thing to you, because it applies, and it's keep up the hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really appreciate everything that, you do for your sons. Like it's obvious to me, how much time, effort, and love you put into that. So appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing your stories, and we will see you all on Threads, and look forward to getting these stories out into the world really soon. So thank you all.
Thanks,
Chris.
Thank you for having us.
You can learn more about Illuminate at illuminate.substack.com. We are also streaming on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll see you at the next episode of Illuminate.